Debt-Free TV, in association with getoutofdebtfree.org.
Just as Guy Taylor, 99.9 people in this room, I believe, have seen him at some point, or been in a cell with him and really don't know which way. So,
No, it wasn't in the women's.
here is a big hand for Guy Taylor.
Right, hello, I'm really happy to be in London because up until about 2 years ago we thought that London was like gone, mentally ill, nobody was interested. So the fact that we've got a group of people here, and I mean that because in Nottingham we can get 200 or 300 people together at the drop of a hat. In London, no, not at all. So over the last 2 years, we've got some people here. And what I'm saying to you is this: it's not about people standing on the stage talking to you and talking at you. It's about communicating and networking with each other. That's where we gain our real information, and not just you can go to YouTube and get me on there all day long for years. Yeah. So my name's Guy Taylor. Anyone don't know me? So over the years, I was a naughty boy as a younger man. I never paid any tax since 1979 because I just basically did my own thing. I didn't pay any tax, I didn't claim any benefits, I just did my own shit. My father was a wealthy scrap dealer who built his own business empire. And until 2005, I just merrily went my way, and if I ended up in prison for my actions, then that was the risk I took. That was my taxes, as I thought in them days. While in jail, I was always the backroom lawyer. So I always had a copy of Archbold, the criminal pleadings and evidence book, in my cell, and I did people's appeals. But that was it. And then in 2005, my father died, and my father was a grafter, unlike me. My hands are like baby's hands. But my father left me 27 properties and a huge estate with no outgoings. We didn't have no mortgages or anything. So when I inherited this, I thought at the time this was, wonderful, but it wasn't wonderful at all, because at the end of the day, I had to actually stand up and be a man for what was going on. And because I was unable to do anything, I wasn't be able to do electrics or labour on people, but I decided to look into the law, because I knew a little bit about the criminal law. So I thought, okay, we're paying our lawyers 30 grand a year, so hey, maybe I can support the situation by doing the legal work. So I started looking into the legal situation, and that's when I started finding the whole thing was a fraud. Everything I looked at just fell apart, When my father died in 2005, I discovered that we had a £20,000 bill with N-Power, which was also a £20,000 bill with British Gas, because they'd both been charging my old man for 5 years for the same electric supply. So when I started questioning it and trying to get money off N-Power, who didn't have the contract, they wouldn't pay me up. So I then stopped paying any electric bills for N-Power, for any of our properties. And of course I ended up in court, and back in those days, if you ended up in court for not paying your bill, you went there and they said, we're going to cut you off. Oh, just ring this number and sort it out and pay the bill. So I don't owe the bill. They owe me 20 grand, and I owe them 600 quid. They can deduct that from the bill that I owe them. So they adjourned it for a month. Now that was a verbal lien. I'm telling them they owe me 20 grand. I owe them 600, deduct it. And of course we went back a month later, and the bailiff turned up, and he didn't know anything about it, and of course they ruled in my favour.
John Powell.
So, they ruled in my favour. So what that meant is I didn't have to pay any electricity bills up until the 20,000, and of course it was under 8%, because that's the commercial interest applied to it, and at 20,000, it ended up I never paid an N-Power bill again. I then started questioning all the council tax matters, because I thought, this is interesting. What are you doing taking a bill to a magistrate's court? And this is way back now, but a bill you should go to county court, you're in the wrong jurisdiction. And of course the more I looked, the more I found out that it was complete fraud, and what actually happens is that the county court is the magistrates' court. The magistrates' court, which is a summary only hearing, is hired by the council. So of course I rang up the council, and of course all this stuff you'll find on the internet. And I rang the court and said, "Hi, we'd like to hire the court for the day. We understand that you've got..." "Oh yes, we'll hire you the court and their facilities." So I thought, whoa! All of a sudden I'm entitled to type out summonses, which are invitations, to other parties, and that's exactly what's going on. So the whole thing is a fraud. Everything is a fraud, and everything you look at under the microscope becomes a fraud. And you think, well, that ain't right, that ain't right. Well, common law is common sense, and I've said this over many years. That's all it is. It's common sense. Common law. What would we need law for if we got sense? We don't need law if we got sense. And so everything we examine falls apart very quickly. So then, of course, the system, the establishment, came for me brutally, because I had millions of pounds of the property which my father left me, and I had a manor house which anyone who was made homeless or whatever, come up there. We had a teepee village. We just were sort of getting it on. Everyone was telling me it's going to be a Waco or some shit like that. But that was what was going on back in those days. And of course, the bank. Now, you know, I had when my father died, because my father was like a proper old scrap merchant. He wasn't spending money on anything, and I took out an £824,000 loan to get the estate up together and sort it out. So I did take out an £824,000 loan. While I was paying off that loan, I then discovered that another loan of £904,000 had been taken out in my name and paid off the first. So of course, I'm interested, it's 80 grand extra. I've still got £250,000 in my bank account. Why would I want another loan? So of course, the next loan was supposed to have been taken out in April 2008. So I contacted the bank manager, who I used to have his personal details. Said, "Hi, what's this extra loan I've taken out?" So all calls and all communication to him ceased, and every letter, etc. I wrote, nobody took any notice. I still continued to pay the initial loan, but I made sure that they knew it was under protest and duress, and that I was paying it pending their explanation of the original loan. So this went on for some time. Then after a couple of years they wrote to me and said that I hadn't made any payments since 2008, which was clearly nonsense, because I had all the receipts for everything that had gone on. So, and then all of a sudden you're stuck in the civil courts, right? Now the civil courts are they're really the criminals running it. This is what's going on, right? They're criminals running the civil court system. So everything we look at in society at the moment is, say we've got the London, the Greater London Tourist Board. That's a gang. It's a gang, and a group of individuals are together. Now one of those individuals will be a common purpose individual, or will be a Freemason. And that's right and left of the same situation, and they'll be trying to hold it to account somehow. And then all of a sudden you've got ombudsmen and regulators, which don't mean shit. They don't actually regulate anything. If you look into it, you'll find that every time. So like me and Linda were talking the other day, and I mean, when it comes to looking at these documents and seeing that they don't support the merit in what's happened to you, you've got to question yourself. Well, you go with your intuition, right? Not your head, your intuition. Well, what does intuition mean? Tuition means schooling, right? You're in schooling. You're being taught something, right? I'm in tuition. So you should know what's right. You know what's wrong. And that's where we are with this stuff. And so hopefully, you know, everybody here understands that that's where we are. So this went on, and of course I started fighting them. The more I started fighting them, the more they wanted to put me to bed. Because ultimately I drove around in a car for 3 years with no tax, no MOT, no licence, no nothing. And I did that specifically so they could pull me up so I could test the Road Traffic Act and whether it affected my common law right to travel. And ultimately it did, you know. Ultimately they had what they call Dick Turpin Day, where they were all sat around waiting for their 75 quid, you know what I mean? And they chased me and Linda up, and she goes, "Oh, have you got your wish?" And they pulled me in on the main dual carriageway in Hereford, and the cops got to the window and said, "You haven't got a taxi?" I said, "I haven't got a licence, I haven't got insurance." I got none of that shit, mate. And he said, he looked around like he's on candid camera. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah. He said, well, you're driving a car? I said, no, I'm travelling. He said, you've got a steering wheel and pedals. I said, I could have Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, don't mean I'm in fucking Disneyland. So they arrested, so then they said, get out of the vehicle. So I said, am I obliged to get out of the vehicle? Get out of it, and then they all pulled up. And they blocked the main dual carriageway and everything. Am I obliged to get out? Right, okay. Am I free to go? And they said, no. I said, so I'm under arrest. Oh, then I'm free to go. And I started the car. Anyway, cut a long story short, they got me in a car, police car, got down the station. But when I got down the station, they didn't want to process me, put me through the mill, because they knew that that was going to reflect back on them. And reflect is a very important word when you're talking about the law, because it's all to do with legal fiction, and all we've got is the reflection of legal fiction, if you know. So anyway, down the police station, half an hour, I said, you know, why have you arrested? They didn't even know what they arrested me, so they took me back to the car and we went on our own way, but it proved the point. So then I challenged every council tax case, and we had 27 properties, so I thought this is going to give me loads of experience, because I didn't know shit to start with. You know, I didn't, and so at first hearing was wonderful really. They got the legal advisor for the council stood in the box and gave evidence, which was amazing really. Now I look back, they wouldn't do that now. So I was given the opportunity to cross-examine her. So when I did that, I said, right, okay, do you work for an authority? And she said, yes. I said, what's the authority? She said, Hereford City Council. I said, right, where's the writ? So I don't understand. I said, well, if an authority, you're claiming authority, there must be a writ, because authority in legalese means the author of the writ. Now, I'd already served a writ upon the council, so I was the authority in that court. And of course, that's the game I played. And of course, they ruled against me, but they never sent me a council tax on it. So I know that really and truthfully, they just didn't want to play the game. So this went on for many years. And we had people staying at the manor, and we had, let's say, a TP village and all the rest. And we were trying to, back in those days, we were pretty naive. We were trying to get an awful rebellion established, and the manor was going to be the place to do it. But then they came at me, right? And they came at me for the £904,000, which they couldn't establish that there was any merit in, because I never took out it. If I'd taken a loan out, which I did take the original loan out, for 824, but then a year later, they're claiming I've taken out a £904,000 loan. Well, there's got to be a diary date, there's got to be phone calls, there's got to be you know, some sort of proof that we've contracted and contacted each other. Manifestation of some intent. And of course they didn't give me nothing at all. So, cut a long story short, then that hung out in the balance. Now my father had paid for everything, we had no mortgages, we had nothing. So, but ultimately, I wasn't particularly happy in the position I was in life, so maybe that's why I'm just an awkward twat, maybe that's what it was all about. So, ultimately they came up and they seized that property, okay, so it's probably a £2 million property. But when they did it, they carried me out, they gave me fake paperwork, and of course I was then introduced to procedural non-compliance, because I thought, I've stood under common law, and I've stood under what Mark and I was saying, it's common sense. Common law is common sense, and that's what we should be operating under. But these guys don't seem to take any notice, they just seem to steamroller. So I thought, personally, and myself and other people who've been working far longer than me at it, the way to take it apart is to fight them with their own rules, their own regulations. And then basically what had been happening, I've been taking, as I've said many times, I was taking a backgammon board to a chess match. Well, now I was saying, here's the chess board. Mind you, if we beat you at chess, we're going to kick your fucking ass in the backgammon, right? And that's what we did. So all of a sudden, there was a problem, because there's a group of us throughout the country, okay, doing this stuff. When they recognised that, they had to put me in the bin. You know, they had to show that anyone who was even remotely listening to me, this guy's completely wrong. Yeah. So, fine, okay, I'm happy. That's a game I've bitten off, that's a game I've taken. So we've gone through a lot of stuff. You know, and it was proved when me and Linda went to the City of London, when we were employing barristers at that time, you know, and solicitors and all that paper. And we tried to employ the best ones to represent us. And a simple question, you know, which I've said about today, you say to them, first and foremost, you don't want a barrister to give you advice. What's this? Oh, it's a nightmare. Well, the advice is, here's my pocket, put the money in. I want a retirement home. You find out what you're doing and you give them instructions. If they're not able to take the instructions, then they're not fit for purpose. Right? So that's the situation. So me and Linda, I think we were down in the City of London and I was trying to explain about void orders, which is Lord Denning, and if anyone goes into that, it's very interesting, right? Something's void ab initio from the beginning, right? The thing about being something void, it means without form. Without form. So in their language, it means you haven't filled the form in correctly. Okay? That's what it means, without form. So, if there is a form, and they haven't filled it out correctly, it's without form. And it's quite easily defined in Lord Denning's rulings. But of course, we sat down with these guys, and I said, right, okay, look, before we start, first things first. Are you officers of the court? Yes. Great. Do you work for me? Yes. Which comes first? They're officers of the court, and they'll be obliged to tell you that. In which case, you know that there's a conflict of interest. Because if the inference is that the court system itself is doing something wrong against you, there's a problem. So we knew from that point that listen, employing these guys, they'll get your last. I've got so many people that I'm trying to help who have been wealthy, they're down to their last 10 grand and their solicitor just told them, oh, we'll get you an appeal and put us in funds, all this bullshit. So it's all nonsense. So we came into it and we went through it and I've tried to abbreviate it as much as I can. That was the situation. So then of course I've then, since that time, been trying to be active in everything, and I mean there are brilliant guys. There's Tom Crawford, Mark Ceylon, a lot of guys in the audience who we're active, right, okay? We do things. We don't talk about it. We don't type shit out, armchair, sort of like people warriors on it, and do shit. So we've seized 2 police stations in Nottingham in the last sort of 18 months, yeah? They want them out. We've gone there. So what I did is take down, after Tom's malarkey, I took down 24 people down at the police station and said, right, I've got 2 jurors here, which is what they are, right? We want to report a crime to you. Oh, no, you've got this common purpose or Freemasonry sergeant in there. So no, put you in touch with the inspector, and all that caper goes on, right, okay? We'll arrest you, we're going to put in these complaints. So we've gone through that, and then in the end they just closed the police stations to us. Close the police stations. So then we had another time, we had people from all over the UK had a meeting in London, down in Golders Green, and so we've all been ripped off. Right, so we've all made statements. So I rang MI5, so what we did, we went to the MI5 website, which you can check it. So we checked it out and said, have you got any questions about terrorism? So we checked it out, okay, so we rang them. And they're arrogant, they're twat, who are you, what do you want? There's people from all over the UK, and we've discovered that there's terrorism going on in this country, and they're using the county courts as a vehicle to facilitate their crimes. Well, you have to speak to the police. So, and the twats, so it's all on film, I mean, Mark's got the... So we all said, okay, so we all jumped in a minibus, we went down the police station, Colindale, I was saying about earlier. So we went down there, so I went to the cashier, okay? Freudian slip. So I went to the counter and said, hi, we've been sent here by MI5. Oh, they're running around like headless chickens. And then we get a couple of coppers who are proper decent coppers. Oh, no. So we showed them the documents. Look, these documents have been used to support evictions. People thrown out of their house, right? They're completely not in the prescribed form. There's no seals, there's no evidence of a fee paid. We've gone right through all the whole malarkey. And the coppers were genuine, and so we're going to go to the bottom of this. We said, look, you're an honest guy, you probably think you are, but what's going to happen is going to go upstairs to some Freemason who's a chief inspector, and he's going to put the kibosh on it. And of course that's what happened, and of course we've kept in contact with the police. They know the score, this is the thing, they know the score, the old Bill. And if they think they're going to get a pension out of this shit, right, 3 years after gardening, right, okay, with their missus, and they get the cash point and there's nothing there, They're no more important than any of us. That's all it's all about, okay? And they've got to realise that. So, we've been, there's people all over the United Kingdom fighting this nonsense. Right, life was a dream. Then I woke up. We don't want to live in a nightmare, right? So we do something about it. And the only way to deal something about it is to chuck yourself into the wheels, into the cog of the machinery. Fight it, right? Fight it. So we got to that position, and we discovered very quickly by doing forensic examination of the documents that they were using to support the merit in the actions of what they were doing, they fell apart. And of course, all of a sudden then, they're professionally negligent. Because the first line of attack at us in anything is always a lawyer. You have a row with someone, it's the lawyer that writes to you. Well, okay, I mean, you can't just take a case up and just believe what his client said. He has to take some sort of responsibility. And of course, if you write back, communicate with them and say, look, you're engaged in a fraud, a massive fraud, which I've done, to do with commercial liens, and anyone who engages in this action against me is going to be subject to this £1 million lien. It's his duty at that point to instruct his indemnifiers. In fact, their rules, the Solicitors Regulatory Authority rules, state that all circumstances that give rise to a claim, they must be notified of, even if the claim later has no merit. So you've been rear-ended in a Tesco's car park 3 times, not your fault, but your insurance is going to go up because you're a magnet for accidents. This is what they don't want to do. Okay, so we thought, okay, fine, we'll let them with their own, and if you've got a solicitor working for you, it's SRA Rule 18. They've got to provide you their indemnity details within 21 days. So all of a sudden, they're open to exposure, because if you want to operate on the seas of commerce, and you're a professional, you must be indemnified. You must be indemnified. So let's take an example. There's a copper out here, and he's saying that he's with a bailiff, and they're coming onto my land, they're going to take my car and look it up. Right? The way, well, I say the way to deal with it, the way I deal with it, would be to say, listen, anyone who moves that vehicle is taking it without the owner's consent.
Can I ask a police officer that? Are you
No, in fact, that's what I'm saying. So if the bailiff is there doing that, okay, he's taking it without the owner's consent. Can you get his insurance and make sure that he's insured to take a vehicle without the owner's consent? And listen, the two things you can't do is commit a crime and be indemnified, or an act of God. Okay? They can't do it. So all of a sudden, I'm not saying that you might have some donut copper who's going to stand there and allow this shit to go on, but then he's personally liable under Section 26 of the Criminal Justice Act 2015, which is everyone's got to know, because if these guys, these clowns are coming to us and they're claiming authority, then they've got to realise that they're fully commercially liable for their actions.
Could you repeat that section again?
Section 26 of the Criminal Justice Act 2015.
Nice one.
The Justice and Courts Act?
Justice and Court, yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but you mean if you put that to Google, you'll get it, yeah?
Right.
Yeah, and now this is where another interesting, because we've got guys contacting us and working us all day long. Like, and we've got an aircraft engineer who was in the RAF over in France, who's been robbed by a geezer who claims to be a lawyer, and then he connected me a couple of years ago. He's very hot into the Consumer Rights Act from last year, and you think, consumer rights, these people have been fucking robbing me. I'm not interested in consumer rights. This is the way to get them through their indemnity and through that stuff, okay? And the Consumer Rights Act 2015, in October last year, has got royal assent, and it's all service providers, including the Crown Prosecution Service, the Her Majesty's Courts and Tribunal Service, the police service, the insolvency service, right? They're all providing us a service. Well, it's service at the barrel of a gun.
They fall under the Trade Description Act as well.
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, hold fast to that act, because it's, I mean, and look at it and investigate it, okay? Because ultimately, if there's an abusive process, it's a failure of service.
Yeah.
So, and I went to court fairly recently, and again, I wouldn't have said this a few weeks ago because things are happening, but somebody contacted me because they've been ripping us off. Okay, and we've been trying to do all this. I mean, I lost £4 million of the property, and I don't go on about that because I've learned that there's Tom and other people have learned, and to me, I learned from what they've done as well. Yeah, and I heard that people have been ripped off through this failure of service. And so the guy told me that, and I thought, well, is that going to be of any benefit to us? Well, of course, upon investigation, and I mean this guy's knowledge, because that's what we are. Look, I understand you. You can listen to me on YouTube all day long. I've been doing it for years, right? Yeah. The main part of this meeting is to communicate with each other, to make connections, not just some twat standing on the stage giving you that. You just watch me on YouTube, right? But we discovered that they're all providing a service and they're failing in their service. The service at the barrel of a gun. So, okay, does this act actually affect them? Right? It affects the service. But the people who are providing the service, so the people on the front line for them, are signing documents, luckily, or hopefully. So that means that they're fully commercially liable for their actions. So when we started investigating this stuff, we started getting deeper and deeper into it. So it got to the point where I was going around the UK, Ireland, up north, all over the UK, and they were giving us, back in those days, fake documents. And we were looking at fake documents, and I didn't know a fake document from a real one in those days, and I got trained into looking at what should be in the prescribed form, what should be, and so you look under section 40.2, there's a standard requirement, it has a seal. Anyone who says it hasn't is a mug. Now, if you're prepared to accept a document, it's the law. If they're going to come and take your house and say to you, we've got a warrant here to take your house, this is what happened with Tom. We stood there with hundreds of us and said, right, we have the keys, providing you give us the correct documentation, we will hand the keys over. So I stood there at that point, and there was like 600-700 of us, no keys, no one wants to engage. So then they go away. Then they come back and they do it underhand without giving you notice. So they know that we've got them on the documentation. That's the bottom line. And so I'm fortunate to be one of those people that have got the documentation to support the merit in my position, no merit in theirs. But then they started coming around, like they did with the Jacksons and stuff, with no documentation. And saying, Tom, no documentation. And still the police support their actions. But the police will say that they're there under common law, and they are, because that's what they're there for. They're supposed to make an assumption under common law. They're not supposed to just follow orders. That's what the Nuremberg trials are about. They're supposed to make it, okay, is this right, is it wrong? And once you've notified these parties, you've notified them it's wrong. They've got an obligatory duty to follow through with what you're saying. And of course, if they don't, A, they're subject to their own rules and regulations under Section 26 of the 2015 Act, and B, they're fully commercially liable in their own position because they've operated outside the boundaries afforded them by the legislation attached to their acting capacity. Simple as that, right? So all these characters that are engaging in our life, it's just their job, but it's our life when they're removing us from the premises. You've got to realise it's going to come back home and haunt you. And we're collecting paperwork, and we've got documents, and we've recorded it. And it may not be this year or next year, but ultimately, it's going to come back, and we're going to come to your house. And I'm going to sit on your lawn when your missus is cooking a Sunday dinner with 100 people. And when you open the curtains, you're going to see me there. And you're going to, hey look, I'm not interested in the police. If it's the chief of police, I'm interested in you personally, because you're fully commercially liable in your own sense. So don't retire just yet, sir. And that's where we are with these characters. So, all this stuff going on. So I've been, and I deliberately have caused court cases myself. When they said that I own a piece of land that I sold a couple of years before, it's bankruptcy for failing to supply for failing to pay the rates of it, I don't even question it. Well, let them take me to bankruptcy back in them days. Okay, you're the guys who are supposed to be doing your diligence, you're the guys supposed to be showing me the paperwork, and then when I got to there, I kicked their ass. Yeah? And humiliated them, and shown them, listen, You know, what are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, there's a case that I did years ago, 2011, where I went into court, and it was the 16th time I'd been taken to court for the same thing. N-Power had claimed that I owed them 600 quid, which I was explaining to you earlier, and I could prove they owed me 20 grand because we weren't even connected to N-Power, connected to British Gas, so I stopped paying any of their bills. And they took me back to court 16 times, and I won on every time, every single time, because they couldn't prove what they were saying. And then on about the 12th or 13th time, I went with a large gang of people. I went with Roger Hayes and John Hurst and Veronica Chapman, and we took over the court. Loads of us. We're trying to establish what's going on. So I said, listen. And the judge I'd given a lien to. Now a lien is this, right? All a lien is the right to retain possession of another's property pending discharge of a debt. So, and that's Chambers Dictionary, right? So you have an illegal alien. What does that mean? Right? He's alien. He's eating our potatoes, he's eating our apples, and it's not costing him anything, right? Okay, that's what an alien is. Illegal alien, right? Okay. So I've done this back in the 80s. Someone owed me money. I didn't get a call. You owe me 20 grand. Okay, I'll come around and take your car. I'm not giving you it back until you pay the debt. Yeah. And you're supposed to, under the civil procedure rules, under the overriding objective, you must sort all matters out before the court doors. So that's exactly what you're doing, okay? What they'll do now is some local solicitors will say that you're harassing them, and they'll try to get a restraining order against you. That's okay, we deal with that another way. What we're trying to do really is establish that we're right and they're wrong, and it don't take much to do it, okay? Upon examination of the evidence and the documents. Now, anyone in here who owns a property, and I'll only use 20 years because that's all my knowledge goes back to, overlooking in documents, and has bought or sold a property through the land registry, the documents will not be in the prescribed form. Not at all. Right? Okay. So yeah, I know. So they're not in the prescribed form. So what that means is we've all got a sitting tick bomb in the land registry because the paperwork's not right. That's why they destroy the documents in 2008 and just so tick. So let's make the land registry the land mine registry, okay? Because we've all got landmines sat in that place, right? Okay? And if you go down and do your diligence, you'll find out that what I'm saying is completely correct. And everybody who looks at this stuff under examination goes, "What the hell's going on?" Okay? Because all I'm here is saying about my experience. That's all we can do. We can read books. Oh, what's the internet? Oh yeah, when you get all these trolls and these clowns doing stuff. What's your experience? And all we want to do is give our unique experiences, put them on the table, and then we can shuffle them around and say, what's happened to him? What's happened to him? Okay, I can see where they're going. I can see what they're doing. So this is where I'm moving on. Through all that, I then started getting contacted because they won't deal with it, right? Okay. I lost £4 million worth of property. I've had 3 barristers against me for 2 days. And then at the end of the 2 days, the judge said the case had no merit. And I thought, hang on, we've had 2 days. So why has it got no merit? But the reason was because I put in for the case to be struck out, which you're all entitled to do. If your father lost a property 30 years ago due to fraud, you don't appeal it. It should be struck out because it was based on misleading, inaccurate and false information. Okay? And that's what I did. But unaware, back a couple of years ago, they'd agreed that I could have the hearing, and I was against the official receiver's barrister, Barclays barrister, and this bench solicitor's barrister, and it was just me and a court full of people for 2 days. And at the end of it, the judge just came out. He was a corrupt. His name's Piers Higgins, right? Ben's 9 bob. He's a gatekeeper for the Worcestershire courts, and he said there was no case to answer. But of course, only upon examination, no case to answer. You've been listening to. They didn't call any witnesses, so it was just merely a paper trail. So what's going on? Because I hadn't asked for an extension of time, the case had no merit, and they'd already told me it was an appeal. So the fact that I hadn't stood under the fact it was a strikeout, not an appeal, they changed it to an appeal, they could have heard evidence for 12 months. Because I hadn't asked for an application to extend the time, it had no merit. So these are the games they play with you. But that's why the experience of what we're doing comes into strength. This is why it comes into strength, because we communicate this information.
Were you not an LIP at the time when you were present in front of the judge?
Oh yeah.
So, but he should have assisted you, right?
No, you're exactly correct. No, you're spot on. I mean, what happens is this, right? In the civil courts are criminal, they're for criminals, okay? And anyone who's connected with them is involved in a strategic partnership. So you're talking, the council were involved because I had tenants. The bank were involved, the court themselves were involved. And if you check out, they're all in strategic partnership. All that really means is it's a criminal enterprise. That's what they're telling you to your face, that's what's going on here. It's a criminal enterprise. It's a criminal enterprise. I don't use bad language, because my mum used to watch it, but that's what it is, okay? So now the individuals operating it, you see the arrogance in these people. You know, you probably, I mean, all of you guys, I think, are probably on the page to a certain extent, people I've spoken to. The arrogance, how can they know nothing's going to happen to them? It's because it's all sewn and dusted. All the regulatory bodies aren't regulatory bodies. The Law Society write their own licence. It's a bit like, I had a woman a couple of years ago come around my house from the council telling me how to fill out a registration form. And they obviously sent it around for a laugh. Yeah, I mean, because and she came round and I was on the toilet downstairs and I see these two women poking about, knocking the door, you know, these obviously like sort of left wing, as it were, you know, left wing, right wing, it's all the same wing. But they were there banging the window and I went out and they said, "You've got to sign this." I said, "Do nothing, you're on my property, look." I said, "Get out, move, mush," right? And he said, "It's the law." I said, "Show me the law then." I mean, he must have just pulled a card out and say, "It's the law." Now, if you're allowing them to nick your houses, right, okay, all supported the police, whatever, okay, and they say, "No, but Tom, never showed us the warrant, that's why the rooftop 7 got off." Never show the warrant, they can't show a warrant. If you turn something civil into something criminal, where they have to establish the element of the civil, it will never be proved, because no one will stand up and take the liability for it. Simple as that. So these women came round and they said, "It's the law. It's the law." Yeah?
I think it's the law.
And I mean, look, the next thing is they'll come round and say, because now what's happened, when we discovered that they've got fraudulent paperwork and we're able to examine it without a lawyer looking at it, because remember, lawyers won't take instructions, they want to give you advice. "Oh no, it looks perfectly healthy to me." Well, we've all started learning about this stuff. We know it's not. So they're professionally negligent, and the whole thing is a criminal enterprise. But when we do that, all of a sudden the system changes, okay? And when you're in the criminal court, they're not able to support that that man was illegally evicted. Now, if you're charged with criminal damage to the building, then who's the owner? Who owns it? The whole thing falls apart. So we are 3 weeks into a trial, a week into a 3-week trial in Nottingham with 7 people, 4 unrepresented. 2 of them, really, Mark you met earlier, Mark Ceylon and Tom's son Craig, proper diligent on it, yeah? And of course, what we've got to do is we've got to, in those circumstances, if we turn the civil into a criminal, we've got to get the judge batting for us, right? So how did you get the judge batting for you? Because he's against you, he's part of the Law Society, he's dealing with all things the way they deal with it. We have to get him to come to the crease, and I'm not a cricket man, I don't like cricket, but you've got to get him to come to the crease, and the 2 bails, ironic word, are his reputation and his career. But he's there with a bat. Now the way I've done this throughout the UK on criminal cases is this. There's no case to answer. No case to answer. Because what the prosecution do, the prosecution always over-elaborate what the crime is. They've done it since I was a kid. So you're involved in a burglary, it's part of many burglaries, and all this. So we've had the case where I've been involved in with a lady who owns a cycle shop. She's in her 70s and she's got a naughty son, perhaps, I don't know. And there's a grow with 26 cannabis plants growing on upstairs. So the police have come in, now they think her son is growing up the stairs, but unfortunately she's got the onset of Parkinson's, she's 70 years of age, she doesn't know what's going on. But the police, rather than securing evidence and sitting outside and waiting for her son to go in the premises, thought, well, bless the old girl, he'll come down white night and bail it out. Big mistake. This guy's old school, staunch. You don't do that. So they arrest the old lady in the mobility scooter. Never been in trouble in her life, devout Christian, and they whipped her off, thinking her son, when her son does eventually get arrested, he won't talk to them. So I represented her son, and a barrister represented her, the mum. So when it came to the first hearing in Nottingham Crown Court, they got her to plead not guilty. We're pleading no case to answer. So I had a conference with the barrister and said, you're professionally negligent. Well, I said, she's not physically able to commit the crime. She can't get upstairs. She's disabled, right? How could she physically do that crime? So he saw that we had a row, and he understood it, and he went back in and said he wanted them to reflect. Remember that word, reflect. It's all illegal fiction, it's reflecting. So he went in, so they dropped the charge to allow the place to be used. So we held no case to answer, and we said, right, but his mother was represented by a barrister at this point. She's paid him thousands of pounds, and they turned up on the day, hello, I'm your barrister today. They didn't even know the case.
Typical.
So when we went for the case hearing where they said, okay, Judge Godmark, who's the one who nailed Tom, they realised in the criminal court they can't mess about with us. It's their career, their reputation. It has to go by process and procedural, whether it's procedural non-compliance. The criminal court's different to the civil court, right? Totally different. It's make it up in the civil court. So when we went for the hearing, Godmark said, oh, you must put in an application for no case to answer. And that comes under a thing called Galbraith, which all of you can check out. So I said, okay, we'll do that. Her barrister then, she sacked him because she realised that she was pleading not guilty to something that she shouldn't have pleaded not guilty to. When we went back for the hearing, they said that we had to provide a defence statement, which is bullshit. But we said, okay, well, let's provide a defence statement. We'll do that. And the defence statement is, I'm not guilty because there's no case to answer. That's all we put. And we handed it over. Right? So we had a hearing in front of a wicked judge called Sifrit. Right? And he knew where this was going. Right? So he said to the prosecutor, now what the narrative that you're trying to attach to this, the reality is there is no case to answer. He's her son, fair enough, but there's no proof he's even been in the building. I said, oh, well, he's the manager of the place. What, have you got any evidence? No, you'll just sit there. And they said, yes, but it would have taken 2 people to go up the stairs with the equipment. So, well, it certainly wasn't the mother. So the case was dismissed. So, of course, the lady involved said, I don't trust the legal profession, I want Guy to represent me. So all of a sudden, lost confidence. If you've lost confidence in the legal profession, they cannot represent you. So, next hearing, we've gone there, and this lady is 70 years of age, and odd years of age. She's on a mobility scooter, and she's got an onset of Parkinson's, bless her. She's a victim by anyone's standards, whether it be her evil son, evil. It's not, but I mean, what I'm saying is she's a victim. So there's just her in the court now. So of course, when we go to court, she needs me to speak because she can't talk, but she don't trust him. So I then said exceptional circumstances in the Crown Court. We're not talking, civil courts. So they make it up as they go along there. So the judge allowed me to speak. So I said, right, this lady has paid in. She's 70 odd years of age. She's disabled. She's a devout Christian. She's never needed the services of the court system, although she's paid into it her entire life. She's never needed the services of the Crown Prosecution, although she's paid into it all her life. And under the Consumer Rights Act 2015, service providers, albeit government service providers, are liable. Right? So there's been a failure in service, an abusive process, failure of service. That's why she doesn't trust anyone. The judge immediately knows then that the next stage is this lady isn't going to be able to cross-examine witnesses. There's going to be an exceptional circumstance of which I'm going to say that I want to be the one asking the questions, which he's not going to be able to deny. So immediately the judge is batting for us. He's there. Because it's his career and his reputation. So he said, you've got to reflect on the public interest. Reflect on the public interest. Reflect on the public. That's what he kept saying to him. Okay? Because ultimately, let's hypothecate. There's a circumstance where we have a trial. She can't cross-examine witnesses. Exceptional circumstances, she's too distraught. I then get in all jury nullification. The fact that the jury is the power of the court. The judge is a bellboy for the court. Do you know why? Because he carries cases around. That's all he does. He directs. He carries the cases. They know that we're going to get all this over. They don't want this going to the jury. Because ultimately what would happen is this, or could happen, is at the end of the prosecution case, at the beginning you say there's no case to answer, and the judge, like in Mark and Craig Crawford and the rest of the guys, will say, I believe there is something to answer. At the end of the prosecution case you say, well, we're still saying there's no case to answer. And so we're not going to put in a plea until you let it go forward. If the judge at that point allows the case to go on, then just imagine this scenario. You say to the jury, members of the jury, I represent myself. This is clearly a nonsense. There is no case to answer. We've told the jury that the judge, he's on application in your absence. We've told the CPSS, but they've continued relentlessly in this. We're not even going to present a defence to you guys. We want you to come out and say, there's no case to answer, not guilty, straight away. Just come out and do it for us. Because this is nonsense. If at that point the jury come out and agree with you, the judge has lost control of the court. His reputation, his career is gone, right? He's got no control over the court. Now that's why I say, if there's more than one defendant in a Crown Court case, I wouldn't have said this 20 years ago, because what I'm saying to you are things that I used to use in the criminal courts, right? Section 116, old style committals. But now we're all being robbed, and the only way we can address it is by putting it back on them. So what's happening is, in the magistrates' courts, there's no longer a committal. Years ago, the magistrates had to be satisfied, unless you agreed, that there was evidence to support a case against you. And the courts used to get these things kicked out, and back in those days they said it was only gangsters and terrorists that use it. Well, now they've removed that, so now you just get committed straight to the Crown Court. But of course the Crown Court is still subject to them rules. So no case to answer, Galbraith, I'm not guilty because there is no case to answer if they ask for a defence statement. Attached with a copy of Galbraith, which is only a piece of paper, can work. Now, when people represent themselves in the Crown Court and get found not guilty, they become a different species of individual. Now, I've had said to me on many occasions in the Crown Courts when I've been assisting people, well, you're not going to be given audience. So well, I can make an exceptional application. And so the first thing the judge and the CPS say to me, you're not qualified. So I'm far more qualified than you are. And so I say in close court, and they say, how do you reckon that? And I said, because I have successfully represented myself in the Crown Court and been found not guilty. Have you ever done that? Have you ever done that? And none of them have ever done it because they all say if they represent themselves, they've got to fall for a client. Right? So none of them have done it. So I'm far more qualified than you claim to. Right? So that's... And if this person has lost all confidence in the legal profession and find themselves adrift with what's going on, what are they going to do? They need someone to assist them. What are they going to do? They're going to come to someone that they know has successfully represented themselves in the same circumstances. Here I am, right? That's working, and that's why I say people like Mark have been found not guilty in the Crown Court, and everyone who does joins that club. So we don't call ourselves Mackenzie friends, okay, that's their terminology. We're advocates for fundamental freedoms under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, all this stuff going on, right, okay, and it's too much for me to be here for whatever. So we recently had a...
Sorry, guy.
Yep.
You know when you said if the guy gets found not guilty, the judge has lost control of the court.
Yep.
What if he's on 3 counts and he gets found guilty on 2 counts? But
Well,
not guilt on one of them.
yeah, look,
That's ambiguous, isn't it?
it's ambiguous. I mean, we'd have to, yeah, I mean,
Mike. Mike.
oh yeah, I mean, look. Hey, I'm telling you what I think of doing, I can't even get the microphone in front of your face. No, I mean, look, it's ambiguous, okay? But what you've done is you've basically pulled a thread from a big knot in, and so at the end of the day, there's merit in what you're saying, just by the fact that it's been recognised, yeah? And I mean, as we were talking earlier, I mean, look, these guys, if you go to a lawyer for advice, then you're a mug. I mean, that's I mean, we didn't think so. We thought they had our interests at heart, but really...
But doesn't it show like to the jury?
Well,
if they're so closely associated with the three counts,
Yeah,
and you get found not guilty with one of the counts,
yeah.
then obviously they must be incompetent.
Well, this is it. I mean, it's what we were talking about earlier.
They have
Right?
to be incompetent.
No, I mean...
If it's so closely linked to the other count, yeah, and you get found not guilty, it's absolutely impossible.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said to you earlier, right? I mean, years ago, when I first started on this stuff, and started listening to Robert Menard and Mark Stephen, and great guys, there was no one in the UK other than Veronica Chapman who was doing any of this stuff, and I quickly got to meet Veronica and become a good friend of hers. But I looked at what they were doing, and I said to you earlier, I mean, the most easiest provable example, and I've done this on a motoring offence, back in those days. I mean, I've gone into court and I've just followed what Mark Stevens had said, and I said, right, okay, I may plead guilty to this, providing you can answer just a couple of questions. And the district judge said, oh yes, we'll answer the questions. So, right, will I get a fair trial if I plead not guilty? And he said, yes. I said, will I get a fair trial if there's been a conflict of interest? And he said, no. So I said, who do you represent this morning? So he said, I represent the Crown. So I said to the guy, who do you represent? And the CPS guy said, I represent the Crown. So there's a conflict of interest. I'm not hanging around anymore, and I fucked off. And I never heard any more from that. Because it's true, isn't it? I mean, the whole thing's a fraud, right? Every bit of it's a fraud. And what I'm saying to you is, once you put it under the microscope, look, if you put anyone under the microscope, right? You put me under the microscope, you're going to find flaws, and you're going to find faults. And the thing is, we've gathered this information through repeated and continual repetition of going through this process. We've changed the linguistics of what they deal with. When I was doing notices of understanding and intent and opportunity to cure 6 years ago, they didn't even recognise, they wouldn't even mention the words, because a notice of understanding and intent is powerful. Okay, you look at the words, right? Notice this, right on the back, notice that, Notice, powerful word. Intent is the most powerful word in law.
Yeah, mens rea.
Mens rea. It's the difference between manslaughter and murder, right?
Yeah.
It's the most, but understanding is the most woolly term in the world, because every one of you's got a different understanding to what I have. We all have, right? So you've got a woolly word mixed in with two serious words. But of course, they wouldn't even mention that in court for about 3 years. Now, because so many good people have had the confidence and the faith to support what myself and what loads of other guys all over the country are doing, they're putting these documents in, they're recognising them in court, they're mentioning, they have to, they've got no way of getting away from it. I've got this guy's trying to be good.
Yeah, the Crown the Crown is in the City of London, yes? Does the Crown courts apply in England?
Well, I mean, look, that's really interesting, right, okay? But the bottom line is, we know that the Crown courts are applying common law, right, okay? Every subject in the Crown Court will have a common law foundation. So, for instance, I'll give you, people always moaning about statutes and acts, I always give a perfect example of a brilliant statute is manslaughter. Brilliant, because up until that point, you would be hung for killing someone as a murder, right? So, of course, it's not just murder, the bloke was raping your wife or your kid or whatever, okay? So, their statutes are there to finally hone the law. They're not there to be independent and separate, putting your bin out on a wrong day or whatever, you know what I mean, and taking your day's wage from you for parking in the wrong place. So the Crown Court, yeah, I mean, look, we're dealing with Crown Temple. When you're talking to these people, I mean, it's just far too, I don't know what information people know, and I'm trying to deal with everybody in generality, right? But really and truthfully, when you think you're talking about the Crown, you're dealing with the Crown Temple, okay? Which is a bunch of geezers who've got their own rules, and rule number one, we make it up as we go along. Rule number 2 refers to rule 1. Victor, yeah.
What would you do to enforce a void order? Void proceedings, actually. Void proceedings ab initio ultra vires.
Yeah.
I did file my one. I'm not responding to the court anymore. I'm not responding, non-complying with their court orders, and they keep on repeating the same court orders all the time, which I'm not complying with. What do I need to do? Do I need to get arrested?
Well,
enforce them?
Well, Victor, right, okay, we're dealing with the Matrix, right, and this is Agent Smith, right, they just keep coming to you, okay, and they'll just try and steamroll you, right, that, we were finding the way to create remedy was finding out the individual who's signing documents, right, and take it to them personally, okay, then all of a sudden that quickly changes. But I mean, look, void orders, everyone will find under Shirley Levold, a lady who wrote about, she put all together basically the main judgments concerning void orders. And void means without form. So in their world, if you don't fill out the correct form, it is void. Okay? Pretty simple, really. But they say there's nothing that's void, it's voidable. And if you check out Shirley Levold in the comments, and I think she's been sacked from the law because of what she's done, right? Which fair play to the lady for whatever for doing it. But the bottom line is that they're saying that void and voidable are two different things. I actually spent in the City of London with two guys I was paying about 350 quid an hour, giving them, talking to them and communicating just to get this information out of them at the time I go forward. Yeah? And they couldn't understand the concept of, or purported not to, of void. It was always voidable, regardless. So when you go to court and you start spouting that off in civil proceedings, they'll say you're talking legal nonsense. Fine, they're saying that Lord Denning is an idiot. Right, okay? We know that, so all we do is we collate everything we've got. We can show, so I mean, like within, for instance, with Tom, we can show that everything's void, ab initio, it's void from the beginning. Yep. Right, they claim that they lent him some money that they didn't, and they're not able to support that position with any merit. The court took that upon themselves because they were given documents from Walker Morris. Now, Walker Morris don't just say, oh, we'll agree what you say and we'll put a claim in. They're professionally negligent if the documents they need to support the merit in their position don't exist. So all we're doing is we're getting a trail. Now what they think is, in their arrogance, well, no, who's going to argue against this? It's going to be a lawyer, isn't it? Yeah? So what they've done is they've gone to law school for 7 years, joined the gravy train. And there's a wonderful thing which I was going to read out to you, but I mean, fortunately, Tom, it's by a guy called Fred Rodell in 1939. I suggest you all look at that, and it's called Woe Unto Ye All Lawyers.
Yes, no doubt.
And he basically says that he took all the law degrees, but decided not to practice at the bar. And he's a law lecturer and professor back in those days. And what he wrote a wicked book on the subject, which you can get on the internet, just go to it and put it in, right? And the final decision for him to do that came when he realised that he talked to one of the other guys who'd been involved in it with him, and he said to them, I'm going to write this book, I'm not going to go to the bar, I'm going to write this book explaining that this whole legal profession's a scam. You just go to school for 7 years and actually come out with a scam, join the bandwagon. And the guy he said it to, because he was thinking about it at the time, he was thinking whether should I do that or not, and the guy he was talking to said, well, how would you do that? You'll give the game away. And he said that was the moment he thought, whoa. Now that was in 1939. You said the piece.
Well, of course, I mean, whoa. I mean, to recognise that and to read that
Because they
document.
consider themselves the modern medicine men. We speak in a language that none of you speak, although it appears to be the same language. But
What was the guy's name again?
Fred Rodell.
And the name of the document, please, guy?
And it's Woe Unto Ye All Lawyers. And if you want, I can send it out to you if anyone wants to get hold of me, if they can't get hold of it, because it's 1939, and it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, you get it as a PDF and read it. Woe Unto You. In fact, I sent it to Tom. I was going to read some bits out of it for you today, because it's awesome, yeah? And you wouldn't think this guy was talking in 1939.
How do you spell
Right, it's woe, W-O-E, unto, U-N-T-O, all A-double-L, ye, Y-E, lawyers, L-A-W-Y-E-R-S. And his name's Fred Rodell, and he's a professor, and he works in the University of America back in those days.
Do you know the other one guy? It's called Inheritance of the Common Law by Richard O'Sullivan, 1939.
No, I have read some stuff with Richard O'Sullivan, but I mean, you've got to apologise. I mean, what happens with me? I'm actually, I inherited all the millions of pounds I inherited. I thought that was good. I realise now I didn't inherit that. I inherited the experience and all the rest of it. Yeah. And so when you say something like that to me, I know the guy's name, and in fact, if you gave me a chapter of it, I could probably pick out some bones of it. But there's only so much space. You know what I mean? And I can't.
That one explains social services.
Right, okay. Yeah, I mean, look, there are guys helping us on all this shit. Okay, listen, we've got lawyers, we've got police actively working with us throughout the UK. And I don't say that lightly, actively working with us.
Many of them, yeah?
Yes, yes.
One of my heroes was Winston Shrub, right? What's happened to him? How did he get...
Well, I mean, look, you're going down the whole commercial redemption angle, okay? I mean, look, me personally, what I could see was when I was in the Crown Courts, I always knew that I could get out of shit if I hadn't said nothing and I played my cards right. So, and I knew that there was a strict process and procedure, and if there's a breach in that process and procedure, it's an abusive process, right? And that means it doesn't even go before the court. Identity is almost impossible. None of you could prove that you know me. Even if they showed a film, it doesn't mean I know you, does it? Okay? And so if you give it a statement against me, you haven't got to prove you knew me. You may have been in an audience, so and that comes under Turnbull. So what I'm saying to you is, I used to think when I went to court in the criminal cases that it was that the case is going to start, but there's business before the court. And I used to think it meant business before, but it means business before the court. And if it's identity or no case to answer, which is what we're hammering them with. Listen, they asked for this row, we're giving it them, right, okay? If they dealt fairly with people getting evicted, there's people getting evicted in this country like Tom, chucked out on the street, and like the Jacksons, chucked out on the street with black bags of their stuff in. And then there's immigrants, apparently, we'll put you in the houses. What's going on? Do you know what I mean? What's going on with all this shit? So what you're saying about commercial, look, I understand, and if you want to spend, I was very interested back a few years ago about, what's his name, the guy, the language he uses. Syntax, I thought it was wonderful, and I could understand.
David Windmill.
Yeah, David Windmill. I thought, whoa, hang on, if I could actually produce a language which is recognised, they're not going to be able to respond to it. But I realised it's going to take 10,000 hours of study. 10,000 hours, if you haven't been to jail, you wouldn't realise this, there's only 9,000 hours in a year. There's 168 hours in a week. I ain't got time for that shit. Give me a life sentence and I'll go right through it.
Same as Ukrainian.
But in the immediate response is, listen, I know you guys are breaking the law, you think all the rules are with you, we'll turn it into criminal. So I started doing private criminal prosecutions. And I've had 2 bailiffs charged with burglary, and I've had a bailiff charged with assault. And I went to the court and I laid the information and the judge agreed with me on both end times.
Wow.
Okay? What then transpired was further information that the CPS on both occasions, the day before the cases were, at one time the 2 British gas guys didn't turn up. So I asked for a bench warrant for their arrest. Okay, I said, look, give them another day, but agreed by the court, yeah? And in fact, the British Gas lawyer was there, corporate lawyer, saying, oh, they haven't received the summonses. Well, what are you doing here?
Exactly.
and you're an officer of the court, aren't you? So you should have been informing them, right? But it's a rigged game, right? And what's happening in a lot of these cases, but we have to explore it, because then we can prove with supportive evidence what we're saying is correct. And we're saying that we're going into the casino, there's a guy there flicking a coin, he's got a double-headed coin, and he only allows us to call tails, right? Well, on the way in, get a lottery ticket. And then that's what's going on in the civil courts. Okay? That's exactly what's going on in the civil courts. You know, if you're fighting, if me or you are fighting each other, we may get a remedy in the county court, right? But if you're fighting the banks, if you're fighting the establishment in any way, you're not. Point proved, because they don't pay a fee. If they haven't paid a fee under CPR 55B, there isn't a process. So the whole thing is fake.
Why that be the issue?
Is that some solicitors firms, they have a rolling contracting so that they can pay it as they go along. So even if they haven't paid it by the time you're supposed to finish.
Yeah. No, brilliant. No, that's brilliant. Brilliant. You brought that point. I'll answer your thing. Brilliant point you brought up. Right. What they say is that these guys, oh, it's payment online. Ah, right. No problem. So okay. So they've got an account with them. Yeah. So the first thing I did when back 3 or 4 years ago, learned that they had. I rang up and said, "Hi, I'm a regular user of the court system. I'd like an account with you." Oh, okay. Who are you? That's it. Close that. Right. Now, if you're in a regular account with somebody, and you've actually credited them, even though they haven't paid the money, then that means you've given them credit. That means you're in business with them. And when you actually look for the receipts, you'll never find them. They don't exist. All banks have been given carte blanche to nail everybody. Not us individually. Look, we could take each other to court and you might get some bent judge or whatever, but he'll come to some decision which we can look at, yeah? But when it comes to the banks, when it comes to the establishment stuff, that won't happen. It won't happen. It will not happen, okay? Because they haven't even paid a fee. So the possession claims online issue came into issue the Rooftop 7 and it's very interesting. Because imagine this scenario then. I'm going to give the banks credit to lay a claim, even though they haven't paid me the money yet. Right? And then all of a sudden I find against you, but the bank haven't paid the money yet. Well, excuse me, they haven't paid the money, so the case hasn't progressed yet.
No, never been issued.
It's never been issued. So these are the circumstances. So all of a sudden you've got to say, well, you've given them credit to make it, and under their own rules. This is what we've got to nail them on. Look, people say to me about common law and about freelance stuff. I've done all that stuff, and I completely look, it's correct, okay? But it's no point. The reflection we've got to give them is their own rules, their own regulations, and we've got to knock them out with their own rules and regulations. So if they claim to have paid a fee, imagine now, Barclays have got 100 cases where they've repossessed people's properties all over the UK. And they haven't paid the money yet. But all of a sudden, Barclays went bankrupt tomorrow. Well, hang on, where are we then? Okay? Where are we? They haven't paid the fee, yeah? Okay? The whole thing's void. The fee has to be paid. There are certain protocols which are essential in the criminal courts, which are used as rules in the civil court, and that's why we must reflect all the civil stuff into the criminal. And brave men like Tom Crawford have gone and recaptured his house. I mean, I did it with Bodmin Manor, okay, and Tom supported me all the way through, and that's why we're great friends. And Tom Crawford's been a great assistance to me. Because of my past and my history, people may not have listened to me, okay, just thought, oh, he's a bit of a rogue or whatever. Tom and his family they're angels in disguise, and they have radicalised that family. You know, his daughter was an air stewardess, okay, they've never done anything wrong in their life, yeah. And they've radicalised the entire family. And you've got to talk or listen to Tom, and he's a man, he's got no agenda. He didn't want to reach the age of 65 and have to start fighting the system that he supported all his life. Yeah, I mean, this is what we're dealing with.
You know all the bills we get, council tax, gas, electric, water, it has an account number. I'm thinking to myself, how do they open an account in your name? How do they do that?
I mean, look, when people are making up the rules as they go along, right? Okay, I've got a piece of paper here. It says it's the law. You've got to give me the keys to your house, right? And that's what I say to you. Like, all this stuff is bullshit. I mean, that goes back to the Freeman stuff, really. Okay, they need consent and all that, but they don't take any notice. And when we realised, I mean, I was listening to very wise heads. John Hurst, right, he's like a vacuum cleaner for statutes and acts. He's a police officer for 30 years. he was a Federation rep, right? But John looks at things completely differently to Veronica, for instance, right? Okay, Veronica looks at things completely differently. But I've taken on board and educated myself in and then applied my own experience to these things. And all we can do is we're the arbiters of our own experiences. So when you're saying that, okay, what do we do? I mean, look it's all bullshit. EU, right? If you think you're in the EU, you're in the EU, sir. Okay, well, we're not really, are we? I agree, EU out, yeah? Okay, and I hope the general public get that gist. Yeah. But the bottom line is, I'm not in the EU. No. Teddy, some sort of Nazi traitor, paedophile, I'm not interested in what he claims to be. And if it's 15% of the population that supported the Tories and said, they've got no, listen man, they've got no validity.
How do you initiate private prosecutions and bench warrants?
Right, private criminal prosecution. Yeah. Very simple, right? Because what you're doing is you're basically laying information on the common law, right? So there's no form to fill out. And remember the word void means without form. But you can do your own form, because it's your private prosecution. So how I started it, I mean, I've successfully got 3 private criminal prosecutions against 3 bailiffs. I've taken out 15 or 20, right? Unsuccessful, right? Even though there was evidence. But it was because I didn't get it right, so I just kept going back, yeah? And ultimately, I was taking up a day of the court's time every week. And so I thought, well, they've only got another 4 days to operate, yeah? So I mean, I was, so this is the thing. But what you do is this, and this is the way, right? Now they'll try and, because there's so many people who've been listening to what we've said over the last couple of years, do a handwritten letter to the clerk of the court, get down in your local courthouse, and whenever you take a letter in or a notice, put it as a notice and request. Okay? You put it as a notice and request. If you're asking them before a private prosecution, if you're asking them for any documentation or anything else, you put an inference in. So there's an inference. You're obligated to give me these documents within 7 days. If you don't provide the documents within 7 days, then I'm entitled to take an inference. Right? And then you give them the time frame, and then you put, what Mr. Ebert taught me, implied admission, absent a response and compliance on the bottom. You lock them into that situation. You take 2 or 3 copies down, and you hand them over, get them to receipt stamp a copy and keep a copy for your records.
Should you do that through the post?
You can do it through the post, but you'll go down physically, whatever.
Because they could rip it up.
Get a receipt. Well, no, but if you go down there and you get a receipt stamp for it, you're entitled to a receipt stamp the court. Now, what you said about private criminal prosecution. So, of course, Michael Doherty got right into this, and Michael Doherty's a top lad. And myself and Michael Doherty have mentally gone through the same thing, and he's assisted me a lot back in those days, because I was trying to lay private criminal prosecutions. I wrote saying that I would like to come to court to lay an information before the magistrates or district judge, and I'm available on these dates. And you get an answer within 2 or 3 weeks back in those days. And I'd go there every week with something to lay against the judge, again, when I say I've tried to arrest a judge, I've done that, I've probably done that on a dozen occasions. I've told the judge I'm going to arrest him. And you think, well, what are you going to arrest him for? And this is, when we did that at Birkenhead, the situation was, I could see that Roger and John and that were behaving perfectly correctly, and they were operating really nicely, but I mean, at the end of the day, they weren't taking any notice. So I said, arrest them. So I was like, you can't arrest the judge. Well, no, you can. So, right, okay. And so this was my old, I haven't done this for a while, but I've done it in many courts. In here, in Ireland on a few occasions. I go in and say to the judge, right, you're not a judge, this isn't a court. Because it's not, they're just holding an unlawful administration hearing as a shadow court. You're not a judge, this isn't a court. I beg you're not a judge, this isn't a court. Are you on your oath? I'll ask you again. I'm going to ask you 3 times, and on the 3rd time, if you claim to be on your oath, I'm going to arrest you. If you're on your oath, you're going to arrest? Yeah. Under Section 13 of the Statutory Declarations Act 1835, unlawful administration of an oath. Because you're under oath to operate under common law, not under statute. And if you claim that you're not on your oath, I'm going to arrest you for impersonating a public official and perverting the course of justice. And at that point, they always run out of the court. They run out of the court.
I've seen it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got recordings of what's happened in cases. I mean, they used to be on the internet. The government's taken them down. But that's the situation. Okay, so you've always got them on that. So what I'm saying to you is this: if you've got a civil case and you've been over, and you know that, go and examine the documentation. Look at the documentation. Get diligent with it. It's your case. Look at the documentation. You'll see what's not in the prescribed form. All of a sudden, you've got bullets, man. Every time you contact under the Subject Access Freedom of Information, the council, the land registry, you're giving them a spade, and they'll just dig another hole.
Yeah.
Okay, so collate all this information. It's not going to do you any good at the moment, but ultimately, it's going to be like in North Cyprus, where I bought land many years ago. We're in the Wild West, and they haven't got any documents to support what they've done. They're shredding their documents, just thinking a registry document will be okay. And you've got a solicitor on the phone saying, hello, I'm a conveyancing lawyer, and here's my key account number. Can you get rid of this man's property and put it in his name?
Followed your procedure to ask the court for the computerised documents.
Yeah.
It took weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
Case man.
Then eventually, I had a letter and it said the second paragraph, and we are unable to give you the computerised records, but the fourth paragraph was interesting. Having looked at the computerised records and the entire file, we realised the case was never initiated.
Yeah, this is what, no, brilliant. That's why the metadata is important. That's brilliant, Judith, because this is where we are with this, right? We're in a position, we've all been had over, we've all been ripped off, but we know that none of their documents support the merit in what they've done. So we collate them. And who are these agents that have been trying to enforce this? From the bailiffs, from the coppers that stood there allowing the bailiffs to operate. You know, like I've said, you know, the next thing they'll come around with death warrants and say, I've got a death warrant, and they'll just bang you in the head and say they're not going to show the warrant. This is what's going on. So we're not having that, but they'll steal your house. No documents, nothing to see here. It's too important, right? You can get them off the internet. We've had them off the internet, right? So what we do is this. We use all this information, we gather our own files. Then all of a sudden, years ago, people didn't tell each other what their domestic problems were or their financial problems. And there are guys who've gone under thinking, God, I messed up my family's life and committed suicide and all shit like that, okay? Now we communicate, we're able to, and we say, hang on, your problem's pretty much the same as mine. Hang about, you know, there's a pattern. And when you discover that there's a pattern, patronisation, it becomes a conspiracy. That's what the coppers are looking for. There's a guy in Liverpool, and a guy in Leeds, and a guy in London, and they're all doing the same thing. And there's a bloke that operates between them. He's the oil in the system. And now they may not even know that they're doing anything wrong. But all of a sudden they've got a thing called a prime mover. Now all of a sudden this becomes essential to a conspiracy. We've got a conspiracy. We've got documents coming out of our ears. All over the UK, right? We don't need any more. But what we do is this. We collate and collect all the information we've got. We need to record it and register it. I've said to Tom and I've said to Ceylon. So, hey, look, Mark Smith, here you go. And we don't then take a class action. I've used the words class action because that's what the general public would understand. But what we've done is we've got individual actions, all operating. So we've got 1,000 or 2,000 arrows in our quiver. And they're all firing out. Yeah? That's what we do. So anyway, I don't know how long I've been here. I'll probably be here for another couple of hours.
Could you just repeat that section on the oath thing? Because that's for me.
On the oath? Okay, yeah. If you check out in Archbold, okay, which is the Criminal Pleadings and Evidence, the United Kingdom, it's section 13 of the Statutory Declarations Act, 1835.
Declarations. Act
1835. Unlawful administration of an oath.
It also says in Tom Bingham's Magistrates Manual that his oath is supposed to do good to his fellow citizens.
Yeah. I mean, well, before I go, I'll tell you about the instance. Okay, girls? Oh, sorry,
I just wanted to tell you something I experienced in the Magistrate Court. I got a letter saying I was speeding and I didn't bother responding, and I get a second one, I didn't respond, and I get the paperwork from Waltham Forest Magistrates Court, and I just sent back not guilty, right, because I didn't send anything else back. And then I get a hearing at Romford Magistrates Court, right? So I went and I went in and there's a CPS.
The clown prosecution. The clown prosecution.
Yeah, there's three magistrates, so she starts blundering, you know, going, I said, so she starts asking me questions. I said, before you say anything, I was away when I received the first lot of paperwork, and when I got the second one, that was, I was still away, but when I got back 2 weeks later, I posted it back with the first one. So she said, oh, did you send it recorded delivery? So I said, well, did you send it to me recorded delivery? No, hang on. So she said, this is the... So I thought, because I said, may I ask questions? She said, yeah, that's right. She said, no. I said, well, unless you sent it to me recorded delivery, I am under no obligation to return it under recorded delivery, am I? So the magistrate, I looked at the magistrate, she went, no, ma'am, you're not. Right, so that's the first thing. Then she said, so I said, I posted it on the 18th of January. You know. So the magistrate said, oh yeah, well that, you know, that's okay, 18th of January. And then she turns around, CCS, and says, what part of the document did you fill out? I said, where does it say that I'm going to be asked what part of the document I filled out? You brought me here to say that I have failed to send back the document. I don't have the document in front of me, so therefore I cannot tell you which part of the document I put out. But you're questioning me about something that you should be questioning to me today. And I looked at the magistrate and she went, so then the CPS starts talking to the magistrate, saying, oh, you know, it's been sent out of time. So I said, excuse me, may I ask another question? So the magistrate said, yes. I said, you brought the wrong entity to court today. So she said, what do you mean? I said, well, the minute I post that letter in the post box, it's not my property anymore. It comes Royal Mail's property. So you should be bringing the Royal Mail to court today. Not me. I'm not guilty.
Well, good. I mean, I'll tell you what, but back in...
They can't prove that I didn't post it.
No, that's it. And if you wrote a statutory declaration under the Act that I told you a judge is unlawfully administering his oath, right, okay, that's sufficient. That's what it was. I mean, now they're trying to say, oh, we don't even recognise that. But I mean, what's happened in civil law, it's all civil handshake. Yeah, we're civil, okay? And you write a statutory declaration. Say, I swear under pain of perjury that what I'm saying is correct, right? You go to a solicitor, it costs you £5. That's all it costs. They're all £6, £7. But it will cost you more than £7. You pay that, okay? That then is the end of any civil proceedings. It can be the end of any... If you haven't received a warrant or you haven't received a summons for motor offences, you do a statutory declaration, yeah, okay?
Well, my vehicle, my mum paid for, I've got the receipt, got cash, but obviously for insurance purposes, because I drive the car because she's elderly and disabled, I have to be the owner of the vehicle at the deed. Right, so I've gone along to a solicitor and I've done a stat deck to prove that I don't own anything.
Yeah. I mean, a lawyer,
this is to the owner, and I'm not the owner.
If you go into a lawyer and say what you have to do, so it's very complicated, we're going to deal with it for you, it's going to cost you £500, and then they'll deal with it and call you in a week later and say, just sign here, it's all sorted. And you sign a stat deck which would have cost you a £5, right? Okay, and they've made 500 sheets out of you. That's what's going on. But what's happening is this. The more and more people are asking questions, the more and more work it's created for these people, which they're not making any money on. Okay, so they're not, and there's loads of people asking questions, they don't want that shit, right? So that's going on, and in the meantime, they've still got to keep the lifestyle that they've become accustomed to. So they're charging people more and more and more, and so the whole thing is working like, you know, in our favour. I mean, look, I'm telling you what, we could all disappear tomorrow and this shit will be sorted out whenever, because you don't need to do anything, really. All we're doing is, like, you know, laughing at it. We're laughing at it now. Because they've got nothing to support. So, lady,
just to relate to this. So, a speeding ticket has come from the speeding ticket for the door. You got your summons because you allegedly have been speeding and caught by one of their guns. what would you do?
Right, okay, listen. Right, okay, this is the situation. I've never paid a speeding ticket in my life. Okay? I've never had a licence. Okay? In my life. I still travel around, okay? And since the 1979, so. That to me, that's an irrelevance, right? Okay? It wasn't because I knew something then that I found out later that I was, whatever reason it was right. But you've got a speeding ticket. If you want to ignore it. What myself and Linda, my wife, did was we had insurance on all our vehicles. One time, we had about 12 vehicles when my father died. But then what we discovered was that they kept getting speeding tickets or parking fines, and guys who were working for us were parking up and getting a 75 quid fine, which is like their day's wage. Yeah. So what we did, we kept the insurance going, but we transferred the ownership or the registration into the name Cheeky Monkeys. Yeah. So what happened was we kept getting letters for Cheeky Monkeys. And in the end, the police came to me on one occasion, a gang of them, and they said to me, "We're going to serve you this summons." I said, "It's for a cheeky, a short, airy fellow and all that." So that's the bottom line, yeah? You can play the game as much as you need to, right? Okay? So in some ways it's education, okay, to play the game. And one of my great friends, Peter Kroll there, he plays these games with them, and he's just got some perverse love of whatever. But it gives you education, and it gives you knowledge and experience, yeah? Ultimately, you can just say, I'm not engaged, I'm not engaging, and make sure the vehicle's not in your name. And like I say, when they come round to you, the first thing you do is when the police come round to you, it looks correct to me. I mean, look, I never used to speak to the police, and years ago, back in the 80s, I've said this before, I wouldn't come out of the cell, because I'm not going to say anything to them anyway, and I've spent days on Operation whatever down in Bow Street Police Station here in London, and they've wheeled me out, and I've sat there, and I've said nothing, and there's 6 hours of interview, and all the rest of it. But then I thought, well, hang on, I'm not coming out of the cell. So I said, well, excuse me, I'm not, oh, you've got to, there's recording equipment, it's not your problem, it ain't mine, yeah? I'm not coming out of the cell, okay? But then, of course, when I started engaging this stuff and realised the boot's on the other foot, I started to play up a bit, really. And so, I'd say, okay, I'm happy to cooperate and answer any of your questions, providing, and I do this on camera, providing you can answer one for me. Are you prepared to do that? Oh, yes. Right. Do you know what Article 45 of the Magna Carta states? There you go. No. No. I said, well, thank you for being honest. But it states that I said, basically, okay, paraphrasing, all officers, bailiffs and sheriffs of the law shall know the law. Yeah. And you don't apparently appear to know that there's a law that says you should know the law. So how can you conduct this interview when we're going to be talking? And so I take the piss out of it, really. I mean, and so how much do you want to play with this stuff? Really and truthfully, how much do you want to play with it? And how much experience do you want to get?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they have to, I mean, with the parking fine, I mean, with a speed fine, what I said to them, they couldn't get out of this common sense, because they have to actually have accompanied me to prove that I hadn't posted it.
Yeah.
Unreasonable doubt.
If anyone wants to dispute what you put in the statutory declaration, when you sign a statutory declaration, you're going to go to prison for a couple of years. Yeah. Right, okay? So that's the power of your signature. That's nonsense, right? Okay? And I'm saying it's nonsense. I had a court case back in the 80s when I was whipped over to Pontypridd police station in Wales. And they said that I'd been in a car with a gang of boys back in the 80s, and that I'd been pulled in and given and I hadn't produced a HORT1 to produce documents. And they found me guilty of my absence, and they dragged me to Pontypridd. Well, when they took me to Pontypridd, back in those days, they'd hold you for 72 hours, and I was arrested on something like a Saturday night and produced in court on a Monday. So I've been in custody for 2 days, right? Because they found me guilty of my absence. So when I went to the court, I said, I know nothing about this. I don't know anything about this vehicle. This vehicle's never been in my name. It's back in 87 or something. This vehicle's never been in my name. I don't own this vehicle. I know nothing about it. What evidence have you used to support the merit in qualifying me to be found guilty of something? Oh, we'll show you now. And they showed me the list of previous owners, which didn't include my name. In fact, one of the guys was Winston Brown, a black lad from over in Gloucester. Yeah, he'd been in his car, okay, apparently, allegedly. So I said, well, I know nothing about it. So he said, oh, I've been in custody for 2 days, I know nothing about this. Someone's obviously given my name and the false pretenses. They said, well, are you prepared to sign this document? And I said, yes. And they said, do you realise if you sign this document and you commit perjury, you can go to prison? I said, give me the pen. Well, next thing is, the door opened and this geezer in a suit and tie sat down. I was whispering, and they said, do you see that man up in the public gallery? And I said, yes. And they said, that man is the police officer who pulled you in this day. He has just positively identified you in this court. I said, so you've had an illegal identification parade? Give me the pen, right? Signed it, end of. Yeah? But it is down to how much you want to have a go and how much you want to... If it causes you stress, don't have a go at it. There's plenty of people having a go at it out here. Okay? So you don't need to be having a go at things.
No, it's just...
No. You come out some
I had some babies around about 6 weeks ago, no babies, they were slamming on my door at 8 o'clock in the morning for, I don't pay my things in. So they woke me up and got me out of bed and I don't sleep in anything.
Well,
so I went and opened the door, start making. Will you never?
No.
He said, do you mind putting some attire on? I said, who do you think you're talking to? I said, first of all, you come through the entry door illegally, you haven't even buzzed. He said, do you know who you're talking to? So he went in with me, sort of stepped back, I said, get out. I said, because if you like, I'll chase you up the road, naked.
Hey, it's not the same, right?
No, just slam the door. I mean, if you show that you've got...
No fear. Fear is fight or flight.
It was like I took the complete kit out of him and I felt like saying, well, 20 years ago you wouldn't have asked me to put my clothes on. That's quite big, but I think
Right. In terms of the right to travel which you assert, how can we assert it? And is there any way that we've got to put a notice in terms of letting know that
look, what's your name?
King.
Right, okay, look, at the end of the day, what we're saying is correct, right? But it doesn't matter how much paperwork you serve on them or whatever, they're still not going to take any notice of it, okay? It's not, it's not going to... I can't give you the magic bullet. What you're saying is correct, right? Okay. You know, driving is a commercial enterprise. That's why on the old tax discs, which they've now removed, if you looked, and I noticed this back in the early 80s, it said PLG, private light goods. Oh, because you're taxed into something different. If you get over cannabis, you might be in jail doing 4 years for importing cannabis, right? You're not in there for importing cannabis. You're in there for failure to pay duties. That's what it's all about. So that when they overturn any cannabis law, well, it's nothing to do with what you had to pay the duties. So the whole thing's a blag, and it's all switch and mirror. It's a scam. But yeah, what I'm saying, Judith, if I can just finish this, okay? What you're saying is this: look, you can get the best paperwork, whatever. Okay, you're going to come in front of a judge, and you're never going to find the judge who goes, do you know what? I think you're absolutely correct, sir. Okay? It ain't happening. Okay? The reality is, they're officers of the court first. And that's what I say to you. Any of you got a lawyer, you go to the lawyer, the first thing, if you have to employ a lawyer, is you say, do you take instructions? Because they'll want your advice. Right? And then you say, are you an officer of the court? They'll say, yes. Say, do you work for me? Say, yes. Say, thank you. Which comes first? They'll tell you an officer of the court. That's why, what I'm saying to you, and probably the most key thing I've said to you tonight, today, is the fact they cannot support, and I wouldn't have told you this some time ago, but I want people to explore this. You represent yourself, you dispute the paperwork, any civil paperwork that's inside the mix. They cannot support the legitimacy of the civil paperwork inside the Crown Court. They won't. We've had cases dismissed all over this country under no case to answer, right? Under Galbraith. But if you're going for a transport ship, then look, at the end of the day, you're right, they're wrong, but you're never going to prove it.
But you're still travelling yourself?
Yeah. I mean, luckily I've got people driving around.
How do you navigate around that?
Well, look, at the end of the day, I'm not daft. So what I'll do is, the vehicle will be insured. Can't be insured for me because I haven't passed the test, right? The vehicle will be taxed, right? And I could drive around Hereford, which I did, I told you earlier, for 3 years. And they never got pulled in because half the coppers didn't want the grief. Yeah. And one day they did the Dick Turpin, you know, when we're going to nick everybody. And they nicked me, alright, okay? But that's great, but the moment I drive over into Worcester, or Monmouth, or Gloucester, then coppers ain't going to know the score, they're going to pull me. Well, they might do a check on the car, but the bottom line is, I'd be a mug to keep wanting to. So look, otherwise get people to drive me around, okay? If I want to drive around in my patch, okay, and if then coppers want to take me on and challenge me, then I could, if I was 20, I'd probably be doing it. Right, okay, but I mean, I'm 53 now, you know, at the end of it, I've got more important things to do, trying to find out just how much we've been defrauded through all these regulatory bodies that don't actually regulate anything from it. And the evidence is coming to light more and more and more. I just want to tell you about a little thing, and then I'll finish up, right? Just to say, because it's all active and it's all, everything's a live issue, and if it's a live issue, it's ongoing. Right? So, the ones who know me here and know the score. Back at Christmas time, I received a phone call, and it was an unavailable number without. So I don't answer phone to unavailable or withheld. You know what I mean? You can do without that. But it's Christmas. I thought it might be someone, and I answered the phone. And it was, hello, is that Guy Taylor? So you're ringing here. Who's asking? And they said you're not obliged to say anything. Fucking up. So I put the phone down. That was it. So that was just for Christmas. So in March now, me and Linda get the house surrounded by coppers. Lights, torches, right? So I've gone out into a back, because we live in a hamlet in the middle of the country. So I've gone back out into the conservatory area, and there's an inspector who I know with all these obbos. And I said, what's the problem? They said, there's a warrant for your arrest without bail. What for? Failure to surrender bail in January. Okay, well, why is it taking me this long to come here? Well, never mind that. Can I see the warrant? Under section 13.5 of the criminal procedure rules, they've got to show you the warrant for the year's opportunity. Right? And it's a criminal warrant. No, I haven't got it with me. Or can you show me an electronic form? No. They arrested me. Took me down to the police station. Got to the police station. Then I realised they still couldn't show me the warrant. Well, it probably existed because it's come from the criminal courts. It's not come from the civil courts. They're all fake. Right? So ultimately, they said you're going to be taken to Welshpool because you kicked off in Welshpool Court back last summer, and all this. So okay. So ultimately, the Reliance guys turned up, or whatever they were. Amy or Reliance, and I said, you realise if you don't show me the warrant, you're going to be transporting me as chattels into that vehicle, because I'm a chattel now, aren't I? I'm being handed over to a private security company. And they said, I said, well, okay, fair enough, you're all fully commercially liable for your actions if you can't support the merit of what you're doing. Anyway, they put me in a van, then they changed it to, it's not going to be Welshpool, it's going to be Aberystwyth, which is a different place entirely. And they carted me in a sweatbox up to Aberystwyth. Well, I say, as a young man, you know, I forgive you, so I'm not insured, I'm in the back of it, I know I'm not insured, but I'm in the back of this metal box bouncing around. I've been around London, you know, from Wandsworth to Lambeth Palace and to the Old Bailey and things in the past. But this is horrendous. But we got to the court, they put me up in front of the magistrates, and they said, you were found guilty in your absence of a crime, and you did fail to surrender, you failed to turn up. And I said, well, I knew nothing about it. So I need a hearing, which is going to be subject to Galbraith, which is no case to answer, and subject to Turnbull. Identity, they've got to prove that these people, whoever they are, claiming evidence against me, know me. Yes, and they adjourned it for a month. So we go back a month later, me and Linda get up at 6 in the morning, and we drive all the way over to Aberystwyth. Right? So we go into the court, and this is a bit weird, and Aberystwyth Court, Aberystwyth is a beautiful place in Wales. It's in a marina, so you've got a big yacht. So while you're stood in the box, you've got yachts and that around you. It's proper maritime law. So, while I'm in there, you're called in. They said there's only 2 cases. So I've already now, and through the case management of the previous hearing, it says that it has to be a Galbraith hearing and a Turnbull hearing. But obviously there's a clerk of the court. Now apparently this guy, they didn't know who he was, and he was put in for the job. This is what they said in the court. He's saying, okay, Sandra, guilty or not guilty? Well, of course, no guilty or not guilty, there's no case to answer. Okay, no case to answer is completely different. You know, I mean, if I was accused of a burglary in a place, but the guy had said that I stole the safe, and I pulled a gun out on him, I'm not going to plead not guilty to something that hasn't happened. So I said, no, there's no case to answer, there's business before the court. Started shaking, so they had me removed and put into the box. Linda starts kicking off about it. So I stood there, and they held me in the box, and the police came in. So then the next thing is the police are saying, this clerk, he just didn't want me to speak, right? And the clerk saying he's in contempt of court. I says, that's civil or is it criminal? And they're saying, arguing, I said, right, okay, they said they're going to take you into police custody. I said, great, that means it's criminal, that means I'll be given the opportunity to explain my actions. He said, no, it's been held in contempt. That's a different thing. Not charged with contempt. And all this. So the police ended up taking me out of the police station. When I was at the police station, the police knew a bit about what I was doing, to a little bit. And we went down there, and I ended up talking to the police and the sergeant and all that, and they didn't put me in a cell. They sat me down, and I was saying, listen, lad, do you honestly think that you've got a pension coming? Because at the end of the day, these guys have written you off. You know, you're working for criminal elements, and they all seem to be okay. And the next thing is the phone rang, and a copper picked it up and goes, what? What? Oh. Okay. And he said, they've held the case in your absence because you failed to appear. And they found you guilty. So anyway, they whipped me back over there, and the police were really good. So they whipped me back over there, and I went back in the court there, and they then gave me 7 days for some form of contempt. So in Swansea prison. So I said, 7 days. Now, like I say, when I was a young man, I was alleged that I could keep an erection for 7 days. But I mean, that's big deal. You know what I mean? You don't give someone like myself 7 days. It's a boost. So of course I've got a captive audience when I'm in Swansea prison. You know, and it wasn't to do with me, but they stopped smoking in Swansea prison, and all the prisoners were on the roof within a week. Yeah. I mean, but they don't. You shouldn't do that sort of shit. It wasn't down to me, I don't think. But I mean, I did mention it to the guys. But I got released. Okay. Now the important part of this, is this. When I was in there, I got letters, money. You know, people have sent me stuff, and I couldn't believe it. And it was humbling. I wasn't expecting any mail, maybe a bit of hate mail, but no, I didn't expect any mail. So I got mail, and I thought, wow. Well, when Linda picked me up at the gate, and we've never had this, because when I got 5 years and 4 years before, I've been on a 4-year sentence, and they didn't even tell me I had parole till the night before, right? So I had no home leaves or nothing like that. When I got out on the gate, I can't believe what's happened, because wonderful people, the moment the report came from the court to the UK colony, they went to this guy, his name is Michael Cray, and when he told me his name was Cray, he said, Mike Cray, I said, what, as in fish? And he said, yes, C-R-E-Y, not A-Y, K-R-E. And I thought, yeah, bottom-feeding crustacean. So that's what that is, But the moment I went into custody, people screenshotted his Facebook page. And they found out he was involved in, I don't care what people are up to, involved in all these dogging sites all over Pembrokeshire. And he had written a post saying David Cameron and the Tories should be culled. Of course, he's an officer of the court. Of course, his Facebook page came down, but they had all the screenshots of brilliant people for doing it. So when I came back, the whole thing took on a new drama. So the police in Aberystwyth, they were astonished that I'd been sent to prison for 7 days. So they wrote to me saying, do you want to continue the complaint for unlawful imprisonment and kidnapping? And gave me a crime reference number. So I said, yes I do, thank you very much. I've been interested. So I've gone to the letterbox the one day. I've got a letter off the police. I've got a letter off victim support because I've been a victim of crime, kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment. And there was another letter from Aberystwyth Court. And I've opened it up and it's from the clerk. So I'm horrified. This man who's kidnapped me, unlawfully imprisoned me, you know, maybe in his dungeon because he's a bit of a dogger. He's wrote to me at my home address and you've allowed him to do this. Okay, so I put that complaint in and I keep giving it to them and they keep automatically accepting it, but you know, they're not responding to it. So anyway, listen, I've been on your long enough, onwards and upwards, right, and let's, you know, listen, we've woken up, and oh my God, it's a nightmare. We ain't going back to sleep, so let's kick ass and sort these people out.
Wicked.
That is best.
Debt Free TV, in association with GetOutOfDebtFree.org.